Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today we're looking at Repulsive Vision. Now, that band name might seem familiar to some of you who may have been with my channel for a while. Repulsive Vision is a band that I used to be in several years ago, before they even ever released any actual material on CD or anything like that. So, but today we're going to be looking at a track called Other Than Divine, which is the first track of their new album, which is coming out on the 21st of August. The album is called Necrovictology. Now, I wrote a review of this album right at the end of July, and I praised it really quite highly. I said it's very, very different to their first album. Their first album, Look Past the Gore and See the Art, was released maybe two years ago now, I think. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, maybe 3 years ago. And it was a really good album. A lot of the material on that album was material that I was very familiar with. It's stuff that I had performed with them like several years ago when I was the vocalist of the band. This album is entirely new material that I had never heard before. So that sort of gave me a bit of leeway into, you know, my analysis of the album, you know, my praise of the album, because it's stuff that I hadn't heard before, so I didn't have any bias in that direction, as it wasn't material that I myself had performed in the years previously. Now, Repulsive Vision was formed, let's see, I think it was about 2010, by lead guitarist Matt Davidson. He's also, I believe he also plays with a band called Wombath. I'm not even sure if that's how it's pronounced. Wombath, I'm not sure. And the drummer, Gary Young, who is also the drummer for Avenger, quite a famous and popular band. They've been around for many, many years. It also has Mark Kirby on bass and Dan McEwen on vocals. Now, there's a little fun fact for you. When Repulsive Vision first sort of came together, when I was the singer of Repulsive Vision, Dan McEwen was originally the bassist. This was many, many years ago, like I said, 2010, so good 10 years ago. And certain things happened, and he had to leave the band for one reason or another. But once I actually had to leave the band, he came in and replaced me as the vocalist, and he is a very good vocalist. He's very, very good at it, and I can safely say that his vocal abilities and styles have changed considerably from the first album. He's improved quite a lot into this second album, and it really does show, and he sounds really, really good. Now, like I said, they were formed in 2010 in Cumbria. I became a part of the band just purely by coincidence, because Matt, the guitarist, actually came into the shop I was working in at the moment, and we just got into a conversation talking about heavy metal, because, you know, where I lived at the time, there wasn't that many metalers around, and one thing led to another, and he invited me to come along and try out for the band, which I did. And like I said, I was with the band for a few years, but there were certain situations that led to me having to leave the band. But they have gone from strength to strength since then. You know, they've been touring all over the world. You know, they've played in America. They've played in several countries over the years. So, you know, they're doing very well for themselves. And like I said, this is the second album, should I say? Third, getting ahead of myself. So yeah, we're going to look at the track called Other Than Divine, which is, like I said, it's the first track off the album. And I don't have any lyrics for the actual track, but it is a lyric video. So yeah, we'll dive into the track and see what we've got. So, Other Than Divine by Repulsive Vision. Here we go.
Who are you? Try and communicate to us. Who are you?
Father's battle
And there we go. Other Than Divine by Repulsive Vision. Now, I really love that song. I love the flow to it. I love the way that sort of chorus comes in, and that almost mob-like moment where they say like ruthless and whatnot in the. It just sounds really, really good. Like I said, there is a slight bias here because I do know all of the guys. I was part of this band for a few years, but I still really, really like this. Like I said, this is new material that I had never heard before until I got to listen to the full album. So, I think it gives me a little bit of leeway with my praise for the song. And I just think it sounds really, really good. The mixing on that sounds great. I mean, you can really hear the bass come through, which, as I've said many, many times, the bass guitar is an often forgotten instrument. It sort of gets buried in the background, and you can very rarely ever hear it. It's hard to notice that it's even there. But in the mixing of this album, the bass really sort of comes forward. You can really hear it, and it sounds really, really good. Now, as for the vocal themes, the lyrical theme, should I say, of this track, it's talking about more or less corruption of the church and the way that they target people. Like there was specific lines in there which mentioned things along the lines of, using religion for monetary gain, the weakened, like people who are in mourning, people who are grief-stricken are the easiest targets. Like, give me this money and I will help you find your way through this, give us some money and we'll counsel you, we'll make things better for you. Whereas in reality, they're not actually doing anything. They're just taking the money of these people that are, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. They're vulnerable at the moment because they're in a unsteady state of mind, whether it is because of grief, whether it is because of an abuse that's happened to them or something like that, and the church are just taking advantage of that fact, and they're saying they're feeding everybody lies for their own personal gain. These people are supposed to be selfless. They're supposed to be like these wonderful people who will like see someone suffering in the street and give them the shirt off their own back just out of the kindness of their heart because that's what God would want them to do, whereas in reality they're using that perceived kindness for their own personal gain. So, they are anything but divine. They are anything other than divine. They are farthest thing from being divine, loving people. They're manipulative, horrible people at the base of it. And these are things that sort of go through a lot of the music Repulsive Vision do. There's a fair amount of sort of political things. There's, the themes through their music vary. I mean, the first album, called Look Past the Gore and See the Art, sort of is a straight shot explanation of things like, the way heavy metal is perceived in general. It's like the misconceptions of heavy metal. People immediately people look at heavy metal and immediately think of violence, Satanism and stuff like that. And what the album title is saying, Look Past the Gore and See the Art, is sort of look past your preconceived notions, look past the fact that of what you think this is about and actually see the music for what it really is. It is art. It is something that has been created. It does not necessarily reflect, what you think it does. You're thinking we're talking about Satanism and stuff like that, whereas if you actually paid attention and listened, you'd know what it's about. There was a track on the first album called Each to Their Own, which sort of further highlights that. It's sort of like the way people talk about the music, that it's like satanic music, and it's like, what would you know about it? You haven't actually looked into this music. You have no idea what it's about. You're just using a preconceived notion and what the media have told you to believe. You haven't actually taken the time to examine it and really find out what it is really all about. I've mentioned this a few times in other tracks that I've spoken about on this channel. A lot of heavy metal tracks do actually cover much, much deeper and more sensitive subjects. Like, I've covered many, many songs that talk about depression and mental health, and how people need to be there for each other, to help each other. I've covered many tracks which talk about, the state of the earth and how, like, if we don't do something soon, we're going to end up, sundering the earth and we won't be able to survive anymore. I've covered many, many tracks which have got really sort of deep meanings like that, but people don't necessarily want to see that. They just want to see, these preconceived notions that heavy metal is bad, it is evil. The amount of times heavy metal has been made the scapegoat in the media for why a teenager has gone and shut up a school or something like that. The amount of times heavy metal has been blamed for that. And not so long ago, it was like there was this thing saying, heavy metal is an inherently white supremacist genre of music. All these preconceived notions, and this is what this band essentially likes to talk about. It's talking about the fact that you can't believe the lies that the media tells you. You can't believe all this rubbish that's going around in the world. And again, with Other Than Divine, it's like, everybody's got this preconceived notion that the church is good, the church is all things good and beautiful and amazing, and they will save you, but they don't. All they're interested in is helping themselves. It's like these televangelists that are going like, the end of the world is coming, please give us money and donations. What the hell do you need money for if the world is going to end? You're taking advantage of people, you're taking advantage of their beliefs and, stripping them bare for your own personal ill-gotten gains. So a lot of their tracks do cover topics like that. And, it's one thing I've always really liked about the band. I mean, I wrote a couple of tracks, vocals and lyrics when I was in the band. Not so many of them used anymore. There was one track that they kept, that they used on the first album. And we always tried to keep it within the similar sort of things, talking about hot button issues, and I think it's brilliant, and the way they execute them, the way they worded them, is just brilliant. And this is also the thing when it comes to writing the lyrics. It's a sort of collaborative project. Not just Matt writes a majority of the music. I'll say that much, But when it comes to like the lyrics, the vocals, etc., everybody sort of dips in and has a little bit of a say on how they think it should go, what you think it should sound like. I mean, I know Gary, the drummer, he's written a couple of the songs, and so really, really good. And I do love that track. It's a great way to open the album, and it's a 13-track album, and it's definitely worth checking it out. I'll put some links below where you can go and pre-order it and whatnot. I'll put some links below to their webpage as well, and to the original video. They do have a couple of other videos up from the first album. I think they've got Fragmentary and Premature Burial, I think, and I do believe they've got a track called Regret, which is also from Necrovictology, up on YouTube as well. So I'll put some links down below for those as well, so you can check them out. But, fabulous song. And I love the video. I didn't actually see who the artist was on there. I'll put a link to them down below as well, because it was a very brilliantly done video. It looked amazing. So, yeah, really, really liked it. And I'm hoping some of you will like it and go out and check out their music, because, they are doing very well at the moment. Like I said, they've been all over the place playing gigs. They were supposed to do quite a few gigs this year, but unfortunately those had to be cancelled. But yeah, fantastic. And if you listen to their first album, Look Past the Gore and See the Art, and then listen to Necrovictology straight after it, you notice a distinct maturity in the way that the music has progressed over the years. You can find Look Past the Gore and See the Art on Spotify. So if you want to go over and check that out, because it is a great album. It's pretty short, but it is a great album. So yeah, go and check that out. But I can't really think of much else I'm going to say about that. I have been waffling on for a little bit here, so yeah, we'll leave that as that is for the time being. Now, if anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so. By all means, drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you could even message me through Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel, which would be of great help to me. There is an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue, should you so desire. There's a couple of limitations on that, however, just to be fair to other people who suggest tracks through regular means, such as Facebook comments, Instagram, and YouTube comments. If you do suggest a track through those regular means, do know it might take me a while to get around to your suggestions, since I do get a lot of suggestions every single day, and since my computer killed itself a little while ago, I had about 3 weeks worth of suggestions that I've yet to sort through. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so I will get to it eventually. It's just going to take me a while to get to it, unfortunately. Also, Metalhead React is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose main goal is to put an end to hate crimes, mainly those involving people of the alternative culture. And it's something I believe in very, very strongly, something I am very, very passionate about. But, it's something I've been through personally myself. It's something many of my friends have been through. I know so many people have been through these sorts of things, but it's something that never, ever gets spoken about. And, every single day, all around the world, people from the alternative culture are getting attacked just purely for the fact that they listen to alternative music or wear alternative fashion, And we're not just talking about simple little things like being shoulder-rammed as people walk past them, or, names being shouted across the street. We're talking about actual, real, violent crimes where people are getting brutally attacked, brutally beaten, sometimes even hospitalised, sometimes with broken limbs, and sometimes even more life-threatening injuries. And, this happens all the time, but nothing ever gets said. The last time there was any widespread coverage of this happening was now 13 years ago, when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were violently attacked by a group of 5 or 6 people who brutally beat them so severely that they both ended up going into comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he did thankfully survive. He was in a coma for around about a week, maybe a bit longer, I can't remember exactly how long. But Sophie Lancaster was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman, she was about 20, 21 at the time, was beaten so severely. I mean, she had her head stamped on. She was beaten so severely that she died. She was murdered just purely for the fact that she listened to alternative music and wore alternative clothing. No other reason than that. And, this was 13 years ago, and that was the last time there was any real wide coverage of the fact that this happened. I mean, it was all over the news at the time. But I know for a fact that attacks of similar magnitude have happened since then. I mean, I think it was maybe a year or two ago, there was a young woman in Scotland, I think it was Glasgow, who was throwing a charity event, a charity metal gig. And she had to leave the venue and go back to her home for one reason or another. And she didn't live that far away from the venue. And in the time between leaving the venue and getting to her home, she was attacked twice by the same group of people. Beaten, punched, kicked, knocked to the ground, what have you. By the same group of people, not just one or two people, a group of people, as it always is, because these people are cowards. And this girl was brilliant. And had a taxi driver not come past at the time, Lord knows what might have happened. But where was that in the news? Why didn't we hear anything about that? Why didn't we hear anything about it? Because she didn't die. And that, on the face of it, is disgusting. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to die before this subject gets spoken about. Every single day we hear about various other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred. We hear these on a daily basis, from the most violent and heinous of these crimes, where someone gets murdered because of the colour of their skin or their religious belief, down to the most pathetic of these crimes, where entitled white women are phoning the police because a family of colour are having a picnic in a public space. We hear every facet of these on a daily basis in all kinds of media. But we're not hearing things of people getting beaten to within an inch of their life just purely for the fact that they're wearing a heavy metal t-shirt, or the fact that they're listening to heavy metal music on their headphones, minding their own business. We don't hear a thing about it, and that is unacceptable. It needs to change, because this is a very real problem that's just getting widely ignored. And by not doing anything about it, by just ignoring it, we're letting them get away with it. We're letting the people perpetrating these crimes think that it is an okay thing to do, and it is not. Something needs to stop, because we can't allow what happened to Sophie Lancaster to ever happen again. It's something that never should have happened in the first place. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to bring more attention to the fact that this is happening. They want more people to start talking about this. They want to bring this to the forefront so something can get done, so that things like this won't ever happen again. And it's really very important. And it's just something I believe in very, very strongly, because like I said, I've been through it myself. I can't count the amount of times I've had myself beaten into the ground by groups of people. And this, as I said before, this is always the thing. It's always a group of people. If it's just a single person, they're normally on the other side of the street shouting an insult at you. They're never face to face. If they want to take on someone from the alternative community, there is always a group. They always outnumber every single time, because they're cowards. And they think this is acceptable, and it's not, and it needs to stop. It needs to change. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their main goal is, because they can explain it a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously you don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it's a small donation through their website or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands from their web store, the smallest amount can make the biggest difference. And the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
False light in a public darkness, continue revelation manifest for humanity.